My world ended 3 weeks before my wedding dress fitting. The man I had built my future with for 4 years looked up from packing his suitcase in our hallway and told me, with the detachment of someone ordering coffee, that he was leaving. He was leaving for a woman he hadn't seen in 6 years, a ghost from his university days who had drifted back into town and, apparently, back into his heart. Daniel, and I met in graduate school. He was a steady, kind-eyed anchor to my more whimsical, impulsive nature. I was an aspiring illustrator. He was a structural engineer. We balanced each other. He found charm in my scattered paint tubes and half-finished canvases. I found solace in his meticulous spreadsheets and reliable routines. For 4 years, we were a unit. We got a dog, a scruffy terrier mix named Barnaby. We bought a small fixer-upper house with a garden where he grew tomatoes, and I attempted and failed to grow lavender. Our families merged seamlessly. His father and my mother discovered a shared obsession with antique clocks. It wasn't just a relationship. It was a life, intricately constructed day by loving day. Daniel was my first everything, first real love, first true partner, my first thought in the morning and my last sigh at night. He was the person who held my hair back when I was sick, who celebrated my first freelance commission with expensive champagne, who patiently listened to my elaborate worries. I believed in us with every fiber of my being. I believed in the future we had mapped out on late-night walks. Children, a studio for me, maybe a cottage by the sea one day. The engagement felt less like a surprise and more like a natural, beautiful formality. The ring, a simple emerald-cut diamond, was perfect. Then, like a hairline crack in a dam, it began. It was an innocuous Facebook message. Daniel, heard you're in the city. Long time. Would be great to catch up if you're free. Rebecca. He showed it to me immediately, an open book. Rebecca. The name held weight. She was a serious girlfriend for his final 2 years of undergrad, and the year after, their breakup was the stuff of quiet, mature tragedy. She had landed a dream internship in Singapore. He was committed to his master's program here. The distance, they decided amicably, was too great. They parted as friends, a friendship that consisted of a happy birthday, like here and there before fading into digital oblivion. Of course you should see her, I said, kissing his cheek. It'll be nice to reconnect with an old friend. I felt zero threat. My confidence in us was absolute. He was mine. We were a fortress. He met her for a weekday lunch. He came home late, quieter than usual. I was at my drafting table, and I remember swiveling around, smiling. So, how was the legendary Rebecca? Is she as brilliant and beautiful as history remembers? He gave a small, tight smile. It was fine. Good. She's good. He went to change out his work clothes, a conversation ender in itself. The Daniel I knew would have given me a full report, her job, her life, a funny anecdote. This Daniel was closed off. A tiny cold seed of anxiety sprouted in my gut, but I buried it. He was probably just tired. The following weeks were a masterclass in subtle erosion. The man who would pull me into a hug for no reason now stiffened slightly at my touch. The man who would leave silly notes in my sketchbook stopped leaving notes altogether. He started working later, citing sudden project deadlines. His phone, which once lived on the coffee table, now seemed permanently attached to his hand, screen tilted away. When I tried to talk to him, to bridge the growing gap with words, he'd sigh. Work is just really intense right now, Mia. And I think I might be coming down with something. I just feel off. The most devastating change was in the quiet intimacy of our bed. Where there was once warmth, whispers, and shared laughter, there was now a polite, mechanical distance. He'd turn away to sleep, the space between our bodies feeling like a chasm. One night, I curled into his back, seeking the familiar comfort of his shape. He didn't pull away, but his entire body went rigid, a statue pretending to sleep. I lay there in the dark, the cold seed in my stomach blooming into a full, thorny vine of dread. The breaking point, the moment the dam gave way, was a Saturday. I was spending the day with his younger sister, Lily. We were supposed to be addressing wedding invitations, a task we'd turned into a ritual of pizza and pop music. I came home, my hands stained with glitter from the custom envelopes we'd chosen, my heart light from the girlish afternoon. I found him in our bedroom. A suitcase was open on the bed. Our bed. He was folding his sweaters. The cable knit one I bought him for his last birthday. Time slowed, then shattered. The world receded to a high-pitched whine. "What are you doing?" My voice sounded foreign, small. He didn't look at me. He kept folding. "Mia, I'm so sorry." Sorry for what? Stupid question. The evidence was right there. He finally turned, and his face was a mask of pained resolve. "I can't do this. I can't marry you." The words were physical blows. I stumbled back, hitting the door frame. "What? Why?" "Daniel, what's happening?" He took a shaky breath. Rebecca, seeing her again, it made me realize something. What we had, it wasn't finished. I let her go because of circumstance, not because I stopped loving her. And now she's here, and she feels the same way. She says letting me go was her biggest regret. I felt the hot sting of tears. "So, you're leaving me? For a memory? After 4 years? After our life?" My voice cracked. "We have a dog, Daniel. We have a mortgage." "I know," he cried, finally showing emotion, but was anger directed inward or at the situation, not comfort for me. "I know how terrible this is. I hate myself for it. But sometimes life gives you a second chance, and you'd be a fool not to take it. I love you, Mia. I do, but it's a different love. With her, it's like coming home. It's like finding a part of myself I thought was lost." The cliches poured out of him, each one a fresh wound. He was following his heart. He needed to see this through. He hoped one day I'd understand and forgive him. I slid down the doorframe to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees. I begged. I pleaded. I told him he was romanticizing a past that didn't exist, that he was confusing nostalgia for love, that he was throwing away something real for a fantasy. I was pathetic, sobbing on the hardwood floor while he continued to pack. He was immovable, a stranger. He said he'd cover his half of the mortgage and bills for 6 months to give me time. He'd already arranged to stay with a friend. He was leaving that night. When the door closed behind him an hour later, the silence in the house was absolute and deafening. Barnaby whined, confused, pressing his wet nose into my hand. I crawled into the space on the bed where his suitcase had been and wept until I was hollow. The aftermath was a blur of grim logistics and profound grief. My family and friends were my lifeline. My brother flew in from out of state. My best friend slept on my couch for a week. Daniel's family was horrified. His mother cried on the phone with me, calling him an idiot. His father, normally a man of few words, sent me a long, apologetic email. We began the brutal process of unwinding a wedding. Each canceled vendor, each returned gift was like pulling a stitch from a still bleeding wound. I functioned in a state of numb shock. Everything in our house was a reminder. His favorite coffee mug, the tool set in the garage, the side of the bed I now couldn't bear to sleep on. I moved into the guest room. I stopped cooking, living on toast and tea. The future I had envisioned, so vivid and bright, had been erased, leaving a terrifying blankness. 3 weeks of the day after he left, a letter arrived. Thick, cream-colored stationery, his familiar, neat handwriting on the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Mia, writing this feels inadequate. There are no words deep enough to hold the shame and regret I feel. What I did to you is unforgivable. I know that. I left a person who loved me unconditionally, who built a home with me, for a shadow. I was a coward. You were right. Every single thing you said was right. I was chasing a ghost, an idealized version of the past and of myself. With Rebecca, I wasn't a man about to get married, with responsibilities and a shared future. I was a boy again with no consequences. I was scared, Mia, terrified of the next step, of being a husband, of the weight of forever. And when she offered me an escape back into a simpler time, I took it like a drowning man grabbing at driftwood. It took less than a week for the illusion to shatter. Living with her, yes, I was that much of a cliché, was like living with a pleasant stranger. She doesn't laugh at the same things. She doesn't hum off-key in the kitchen. She doesn't know that I need my coffee with exactly 1.5 sugars, or that I get a headache if I don't have protein for breakfast. She doesn't understand my family like you do. She doesn't love Barnaby. She is not you. I miss you with a physical ache. I miss your voice, your ridiculous impressions, the way you bite your lip when you concentrate. I miss planning our future. I am sitting here, and I know that if I hadn't been the world's biggest fool, we'd be finalizing the menu with the caterer today. The thought is crushing. I am so sorry. I have ended things with Rebecca. It was a farce. I am staying in a rented room, alone, facing what I've done. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I am begging you, from the ruins of my own making, for a chance to talk, to see you. I will do anything to even begin to make this right. I love you. I never stopped. I was just blind and terrified. Daniel, I read it once, then again and again. A storm of emotions raged inside me. Vindication, fury, a painful, treacherous flicker of hope. He was sorry. He realized his mistake. The part of me that still loved him, that would always love him, wanted to run to him, to erase the last month of hell. But the part of me he had broken, the part that had sobbed on the floor, screamed in silence. He had discarded me. He had chosen someone else. He had looked at our life, our love, and walked away. That was not a glitch. It was a fundamental failing. If he could leave when things were good, what would happen when life got truly hard? Sickness, financial strain, the exhausting reality of raising children? Would he run then, too? I spent 2 days in agony, the letter burning a hole on my nightstand. I talked to my mother, to my best friend. I cried. I screamed into a pillow. Finally, I unblocked his number and sent a single, cold text. I received your letter. Do not contact me again. The wedding is canceled. We are done. His reply was immediate, desperate. Please, Mia. Just one conversation. I need to see you. I'll do anything you ask. The use of my name, the desperation, it fueled my anger, not my sympathy. He had lost the right to my pain. I blocked him again, feeling a sharp, clean sense of resolve. I met with his mother the next day, and, through tears of our own, we signed and sent the formal cancellation notices to the guests. It was final. I began to reclaim my space. I rearranged the living room furniture. I bought new bedding, bold and patterned, nothing we would have chosen together. I painted an accent wall, a deep emerald green. I was building a new world, one he was not part of. Then the knocking started. It was a Tuesday night, around 8:30 p.m. A firm, insistent knock on the front door. Barnaby barked. Through the peephole, my heart seized. It was Daniel, and beside him, looking uncomfortable, was Rebecca. My breath caught in my throat. The audacity, the sheer, unbelievable cruelty of bringing her here, to the home we had shared. I froze, my back against the door, hand over my mouth. I heard his voice, muffled but clear. Mia, please. I know you're there. Your car is outside. Please, just, just talk to me through the door. 5 minutes. Rebecca said something low, and he shushed her. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, maybe 10 minutes, before I heard their footsteps retreating. I slid down to the floor, Barnaby licking my face, trembling uncontrollably. It wasn't fear of Daniel. It was a violent invasion, the reopening of the wound. He knew where I was most vulnerable, in my own home. They came back the next night, and the night after that. Same time, just after I'd usually get home from my evening jog. I stopped turning on the main lights, living in the glow of lamps. I felt like a prisoner, jumping at every sound. Was this harassment? It felt like it, but a part of me hesitated. Calling the police felt nuclear, an irreversible escalation that would shatter the delicate peace with his family, who had been so kind. On the fourth night, I was ready. I was angry. The fear had burned away, replaced by a cold, clear fury. I would not be intimidated in my own house. I waited, standing in the dim living room. The knock came, predictable as a curse. I took a deep breath, smoothed my shirt, and opened the door. Daniel looked haggard, shadows under his eyes. Rebecca stood a step behind him, her arms crossed. She looked miserable and embarrassed. "Mia," Daniel breathed, his eyes wide with hope that made me nauseous. I didn't let him speak. My voice was steady, colder than I imagined it could be. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you were on my doorstep with her before I call police for trespassing and harassment." He flinched. I needed you to see, to understand. I brought Rebecca so she could tell you, so you could see it's over, that it was a terrible mistake." I looked past him to Rebecca. Her eyes were downcast. "Is that true?" I asked her directly. "Are you here of your own free will to help him win me back?" She glanced at Daniel, then back to me, a flicker of resentment in her gaze. "He begged me," she said quietly. "He said it was the only way you believe him, that I owed it to him." She shook her head. This is humiliating. For all of us. I'm sorry, Mia, for everything. I'm moving back to Singapore next month. He wasn't what I remembered either. She took a step back. "I'm leaving. This is between you two." She turned and walked quickly down the garden path, leaving Daniel standing alone, looking more foolish than ever. He turned back to me, desperation etched on his face. "See? It's over. It meant nothing. It was a fantasy. You're my reality. Please." I looked at him, this man I had loved more than anything. I searched for the person I knew, the partner I'd trusted. But all I saw was a selfish, confused boy who had broken something precious and now wanted me to glue it back together for his convenience. The love was still there, but it was buried under mountains of betrayal and a fundamental loss of respect. "Daniel," I said, my voice softening slightly, not with warmth but with finality, "I received your letter. I heard you. I believe you're sorry. I believe you regret it. But regret does not undo what you did. You didn't just have a moment of doubt. You made a conscious, sustained series of choices to lie to me, to withdraw from me, to pack a bag and walk out that door. You chose her. You actively, repeatedly chose not me." Tears streamed down his face. "I was wrong. I was scared." "I know," I said, "and that's the problem. When you were scared of our future, your solution was to run to another woman, not to talk to me, your fiancé, not to seek counseling. You ran. That is who you are in a crisis. And I cannot build a life, a marriage, with someone like that. I deserve someone who chooses me, especially when it's hard, especially when they're scared. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. We can postpone the wedding. Take all the time you need." "No," I interrupted, gentle but firm. There is no we. You ended we. I have accepted that. You need to accept it too. This, I gesture between us, is over. You need to leave. Do not come to my house again. Do not contact me. If you do, I will file for a restraining order. I mean it. The finality in my voice broke through his desperation. The hope in his eyes extinguished, replaced by a dawning, horrible comprehension. He had truly lost me, not because of Rebecca, but because of his own actions. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He just nodded, a slow, broken movement. He turned and walked away. I watched him go, down the path, past the garden gate he'd once painted for me. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. There was no triumphant feeling, no surge of empowerment, just a deep, profound, and weary sadness. It was a sadness of burying something that was once beautiful and alive. But beneath the sadness, like the first green shoot after a fire, was a fragile sense of peace. It was my peace, my house, my future unknown but mine alone to shape. I picked up Barnaby, who had been sitting quietly by my feet, and held him close. "Just you and me now, buddy," I whispered into his fur. And for the first time since the suitcase had appeared on the bed, the thought didn't fill me with dread. It felt like a beginning.